I've never been good at belching. My brothers do
Practice
it
makes
on
perfect.
command. Sometimes I let out a good one and I feel really proud of myself.
Yeah.
It's this conditioning that happened as a young child growing up with two brothers that were always like able to out belch me. I know. Should put it on my resume.
Now, have you talked about this in therapy at all? Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Michael Gray.
And I am Erin Green. And I'm not blowing my nose on the air, Michael, which is what you just asked me to do.
Well, just as we were getting ready to do the intro, Erin grabs a tissue, and I was like, is she going to blow? Is she just wiping?
But you just kept on counting down, didn't you? You didn't pause and...
Hey, I mean, if we're going to keep it real, we're going to keep it real. You know what I'm saying?
Oh boy. No, I did not need to blow my nose on the air.
Okay, well.
You all are spared. It's your lucky day.
Oh man, what a lucky day. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Good.
I'm I did the presentations that I think I've told you about with one of our local cross-country teams. This morning we did a little presentation on nutrient timing and snack planning, and
Nice.
it was just really fun. I love meeting with these kids. I did one last week with a group of mountain bikers, and it's just fun to see the kids connect the dots. And I say kids, I mean, they're all ages. Like I've had a few that are like in the 11, 12 range. And then I have some that are 17, 18, and they really are putting it together and reinforcing it. And it's
That's awesome.
it's a super cool way to kind of kick off my Wednesday when I'm
Heck
doing
yeah,
this.
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a good fourth?
We did.
Do you still have all 10 fingers?
We have all 10 fingers, but
Do we
we
do a finger
did have... We did have a kind of an interesting day before the 4th. We went for a gravel ride on this, I guess, a peak nearby called Danskin Peak.
And we thought that gravel now, huh?
We thought we started early enough that we'd be fine, right? Like get going early, and you get up to this really high mountaintop. I think we climbed up to like 6,600 feet, and it was hot AF up there. Tailwind, like soul sucking hot. Matt was getting heat exhaustion. And then, so he bails, like we finally get up to the peak, and it was so hard. Like the terrain was so hard, like a 10% climb with loose, big rocks. I mean, whatever. I don't know who, I know whose idea this was. This was actually our buddy Troy's idea. And he was working in an air conditioned office when we did this. So
It's Troy's fault.
Anyway, he's listening too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Troy.
Yeah. So we get off, we start descending, and we're like, let's get back to the, pickup and get off this mountain. And Matt just like takes off. He's a much faster descender than I am. And we're going down a rough section, and I got double flats, 2 flat tires at once. And sealant goes spraying everywhere. Remember how much I bragged about, I didn't get a single flat tire at Unbound. Well, guess what?
Universe was listening.
Apparently I did something wrong in the last couple of weeks, because it came back to me. And so anyway, we got separated, and then I tried calling Matt. Turns out he doesn't have his phone with him. It just was and there were flies biting me. I still have bites on my ankles. Like it just was not a fairy tale of a ride kind of thing.
Sound like it.
And it kind of got to the point where we're like, all right, we're pretty competent people. We're athletic, and we're young, and we can, we come prepared. And this was kind of a dumb thing to do. Like we actually were not very smart in our decision making on this day. So we kind of spent the rest of the weekend laying low and recovering at home in the AC after that little escapade.
Nice. All right.
And how was your 4th of July?
It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Better than ours.
Yeah, we went up with a few family friends to one of the couples that the husband has. His parents have some property about close to 2 hours away outside of Brenham, Texas. And we went up there, and they have a barn dominium. Have you heard of those? Like a barn that's been like redone. Super nice inside. It was rad. Bunch of property, woods for the kids to tromp around in, and pond for fishing and just lots of land. They had like 100-foot slip and slide made out of plastic. We put like baby oil and dish soap on,
Oh
and
my
we're going
gosh.
down inner tubes. And yeah, it was a blast. Did fireworks and had burgers and hot dogs and
Oh, that sounds like so American. A
possibly,
barn dominium.
yeah, possibly a little too much
Sounds like,
whiskey. It's a
oh,
fine line there. Yeah.
who's counting?
I wasn't. I can tell you that much.
America.
America. Yeah, but no, it was
Yeah.
great. It was fun. And we came back Monday after lunch, and yeah, it was a good weekend.
Good
It was nice.
deal.
Yeah.
So I have an agenda item straight out of the gate.
Straight out of the gate. She
I've been
rhymed it
wanting,
even.
I know, I've been wanting to ask our listeners to do this for a long time now. And it's finally, I've remembered. I always forget.
Okay.
All right,
There we go.
listeners.
All right,
I want
listeners,
you to
listen
do,
up.
yeah, listen
Keep doing what
good.
you're doing right now. Listening.
Probably our poor listeners are like stuck in their cars and they're like, what else do you expect me to do? Jeez. Okay. I want you to do one of three things. If you're driving in your car, you can wait until you get somewhere safe to do one of these three things, or do all three if you're an overachiever. All right. Option one is to go into iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts and please rate us and leave a review. Please. You can be honest. I mean, let us know what you think. We love it. Honest feedback. Give us a rating. Option two would be our podcast today is about set point theory with body weight. We'll talk about that. But if there's a podcast favorite that you love or this episode, please share it with a friend, pass it along, tell somebody that, hey, I heard this. I thought you could use it. So that's option two. Option three would be share it on social media, drop in Instagram, share our post that announces our podcast, something, anything to kind of get the word out and spread the word. I've heard from a lot of people that say that they listen and they love what we have to say and they never miss an episode. Maybe there's somebody else in your world that would probably get the same enjoyment out of our podcast. So one of those three options, please, when you get to a safe place where you can do that.
Yeah. Not going down the highway at 70 miles an hour.
We don't want you texting and driving or social media posting about driving.
Yeah. Because here's the thing is, like Aaron said, we've had a lot of people say like this. I mean, we just had someone, I'm going to read a comment from Instagram, just meant like, this is my favorite podcast. We've had a lot of that. We've had a lot of people say, this is, you really helped me change my thinking about like weight loss and health. And, it's been so beneficial to me. If you feel like this podcast has done that for you, it's probably going to do that for somebody else. Right. And so I know sometimes it can feel weird, like sharing stuff, because it feels like a bit of an imposition, like, hey, I thought you would like this kind of thing. But the reality is if it's helpful, it's helpful. If this podcast helps you, it's probably going to help other people. And sharing something that helps other people live a healthier life, I think, is a very valid thing to do. So, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So thanks, listeners.
Real quick, I wanted to we got a comment on, we just released episode 57 yesterday as of recording. And we got a comment that I wanted to read. This is from Sue. Sue has interacted with me some and with Middleish some. She's a big supporter of the podcast, and I just wanted to give her a shout out for this comment. This is great. She said, another great podcast. And this, you mentioned going back and listening to episode 2 and 3. Funny story. Yesterday, I was listening to an old episode. I believe it was like halfway through the year, because you two were talking about what you would do for the 1-year anniversary episode. It was funny because you were talking about drinking and doing it tipsy, ha ha ha, which we still haven't done. And we 100% need to do. I am so on board with this. I go back and listen to old podcasts all the time, and it's like brand new sometimes. I pick up on things I missed before or didn't resonate with me then, but does now. This is truly my favorite podcast. Thank you, Sue, so much for that comment. Love to hear that.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, we love that kind of feedback. So hop on there and interact with us. Share with a friend.
It's a good reminder to, if you came into the Middleish game, around episode 20, 30, 40, something
in the Middleish.
In the Middleish, yeah. There's a lot of content. We've done this every week for over a year. And honestly, I don't feel like we've done an episode that I'm like, that was all right. I feel like it's just top-notch content. So I think there's probably something worth exploring if you came in Middleish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. We do reference a lot of our previous
Hmm.
episodes when we talk about things, which today we will as well,
Yeah.
because when we're talking about set point theory with weight, we've done episodes on metabolism, we've done episodes on body kindness, on
Hmm.
intuitive eating. There's so many overlapping concepts with some of the stuff
Yeah.
we've talked about.
Yeah.
We've referenced diet culture and some of that stuff, and just how we're kind of programmed to believe that our bodies need to physically change in order to be healthy.
Mhm.
We're gonna talk about this today and reference a few of our episodes,
Yeah.
so maybe there'll be something that you haven't heard before and you could go back and listen to it.
Something for you in there.
Hmm.
Let's dive in, huh?
So, do you remember the first time you ever heard of set point theory, or that it became kind of in your consciousness, Michael, when you, like, I don't know, working with individuals with weight loss, or it just kind of coming to that realization that not everybody just can drop weight, like Tommy
Yeah.
Lasorda or whatever.
Yeah. Um, Boy, that was an old reference.
I wondered if you get that.
Man.
Was it Slim Fast or Nutrisystem that he did?
Boy, I don't know.
Was he a
But
baseball
man,
coach or player? It's an old one.
both.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you,
Yeah.
growing up,
Player and a
I
coach.
watched, yeah, I saw those commercials all the time. I'm Tommy Lasorda.
Well, it took me a second because I was like thinking about my answer, but also like, did she just say Tommy Lasorda? Did she mean somebody different, like a little more current, or is she really referencing like ads from like 1987?
That really came out of like the archives of my brain,
Yeah,
because
you
I
dove
wasn't even
deep.
planning to mention him today, but
I like that a whole lot.
when I
Yeah.
picture extreme weight loss examples,
Hmm.
I picture those commercials, the Slim Fast commercials or the Nutrisystem commercials that of old, that
Right.
I saw growing up. And I remember thinking, like, man, these people just get so small compared to what they,
Hmm.
were before. And I sort of grew up thinking that people could just change their bodies whenever they
Right.
wanted, however they wanted.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious
So
if you
probably,
remember.
I mean, not until I was into training for sure, and I don't know. I mean, to me, it's been sort of one of those things that I've just kind of became aware of or curious about, or, this doesn't seem to be working the same for everyone, or people respond differently. And then I don't remember when I first heard about set point theory. It was one of those things that was like, oh, okay, there's a title of something. I don't really know what that is. And
Mhm.
then you hear it again, and that kind of thing. And so I don't remember specifically when I did. It sort of just like was a gradual awareness, kind of through just experience with clients. And then as it kind of became a more predominant thing in the fitness diet lexicon or whatever, like, okay, this is
Mhm.
like a thing that people are just kind of aware of now. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Was there a
Yeah.
moment for you?
I think um I think I became aware of it sometime in college, like through my dietetics
Mm.
studies. But I honestly think the first time I heard about it, I was a little put off by the theory, thinking that it was one, either a crutch that people used just to like not put any effort into weight loss or changing their bodies. I was very scientifically minded in terms of like the science of nutrition, the calories, the numbers, the nutrients, and like that manipulation. And I also thought maybe this was something that only applied to people who had very severe obesity, or had, so dramatically changed their body in such a way that they kind of, re-established a different, I guess, set point in body weight. That's kind of how my brain interpreted it at
Mm-hmm.
first. And then I think as I came to appreciate how humans interact with food, and how our lives and our environments and so many factors interplay into the whole body system, and that
Mm-hmm.
it's not as simple as calories in, calories out, or
Yeah.
whatever. I think that's when I really came to appreciate that, man, there's a lot of validity. There's a ton of research on set point theory too,
Mm-hmm.
and the intricacies of it, which we won't get into all of the details today because it's just far too in depth. But there's a ton of research saying that like humans actually have a, preferable place where their body weight will settle.
Yeah.
So
And that's the idea behind it is, so I don't know if you wrote this definition or if it's from somewhere, but it's just the idea, set point theory is the idea that body weight has a predetermined range that is preferable to the individual. Preferable is a key word in here, in my opinion, resulting in upper and lower limits that are resistant, another keyword, resistant to external manipulation. So I'll read that again without my interjections. The idea that body weight has a predetermined range that is preferable to the individual, resulting in upper and lower limits that are resistant to external manipulation. Okay.
yeah.
So how I talk about it is it's the idea that your body has just sort of a weight range that it likes to hang out. It's where it likes to be. This is the place where it just things just operate the easiest and most efficient, and just kind of where, for a variety of reasons, your body likes to sit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not
And
a bad thing.
yeah. Can we
Yeah.
just say it again louder for those in the back?
Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when I say it's preferable to the individual, I really mean like it's your body's happy place. It's preferable to where your body wants to be.
Right.
I've heard researchers phrase it in a way that your body decides what to do with the nutrients you put into it. That's a really powerful statement, because I think, we as humans tend to think that we have control over everything and that we're the masters of our, universe in our body, but your body actually decides what it's going to do with these nutrients. So one of the things that we see in the world of set point theory is that we're all individuals. We all have different, metabolic rates and different, we'll go into some of the genetic factors, environmental factors, all these different things. You have your own set of circumstances that is impacting how your body uses nutrition, period. So you might be similar to a friend, you might be similar to a family member, you might be completely different from them. The idea that we always have control over how your body is going to use nutrition is just, I think that is one of the huge pitfalls of diet culture and people's unhappiness with their bodies, is believing that they can always change it and manipulate it. And you can't always, your body decides.
Yeah. Well, there are so many, there are so many factors and processes happening that, like, we're not simple creatures. Like,
no.
Internally, there is just bananas amount of stuff going on all the time, right? Like, you're constantly regrowing new skin, right? Like your cells are regenerating there's so much going on that one, we're not aware of at all, and two, we have zero control over. Now, maybe for some of these things we can influence a bit, right? But yeah. And a good example of this is, we talked a lot about metabolism back in episode 48. I think that was one of my favorite episodes we've done. It's been a really good one, or it's a really good one. But the idea that, so let's say Aaron eats 100 calories of whatever, right? It's scientifically precise, right? Like it's exactly 100 calories. And I eat the same 100 calories of the exact same thing. It's very specific. This is one piece of the
1,000
of 1,000 that that paints the picture of things are so individual. Her body may take 70 of those calories, right? Mine may take 99. And then what exactly happens with those? It's so different. Our bodies metabolize nutrients differently. We absorb or don't absorb certain amounts of calories differently. Like, it's so beyond like individual. It's insane. And so when we talk about these like real general terms, we talk about like a calorie range, man, like that is such a small piece of the picture. And it might be helpful. It might be helpful for whatever your goals toward getting healthier are. Sure. It may not, because that's just one approach to a million, and one approach that may be appropriate for some people and wildly inappropriate for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think people get stuck in that idea that, well, I just have to cut 3,500 calories, equals a pound kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, let's just back up a second and say that calorie counting is flawed, because the way calorimetry works is they basically burn the food down to find out how many calories it releases, and like do all these laboratory kinds of experiments. Well, your body isn't a laboratory.
Nope.
It doesn't, they're all estimates. It's always an estimate. And then you have portion size estimates. And then you have, how the food is prepared, or what kinds of ingredients are in the food, or whatever. So you have all of these other things that are affecting how many calories you're consuming. And then on the body side, you have exactly what you just said, Michael. Somebody may use a certain amount of calories from this food, and somebody may not use that many or use more. It's so hard for people to wrap their heads around this, because we've been taught, yes, from a very, very simplistic standpoint, calories in, calories out. And I will say that's an accurate, very simplified way of looking at food. But calories in has a lot of factors that goes into it. And then calories burned has a lot of factors that goes into it.
Yep.
And even each person's different.
And yeah, everybody's different. And even just like a calorie is not a calorie to you and me. Like a calorie is not the same thing, because sure, yes, calories in, calorie out, like you said, it is accurate in a lot of ways. It's also misleading because it doesn't take into account your diet history, your physical health. It doesn't take into, hormones. And there's so many things that determine your basal metabolic rate, which episode 48, check it out if you want to know more about that. But that's just how many calories it takes for you to exist as you. You could take a 5'8", 180-pound woman and a 5'8", 180-pound woman, right, with similar body fat percentages and maybe even like athletic history and that kind of stuff. And their basal metabolic rate is not going to be at all the same. And the way they ingest and use and metabolize and partition calories, all that kind of stuff is not going to be the same, because they're not the same person. And this is really important. You are not your friend that had success doing this thing. You're not your mother who had success doing this thing. You're not the celebrity or the Instagram influencer who said, you are you. And what's really important is that we just shed all this bullshit that there's a way for you to get healthier, for you to lose weight or optimize your health or whatever, because there's not this a way. There's a way for you, but there's not a way for everyone. And if you don't have the interest in really digging into what is the way that works for me, how do I, as me, optimize my health in my own unique way, you might be chasing ghosts.
Right. Well, which a lot of people do.
Yep.
A lot of people do. And this
there's so much unhappiness there. There's so much unhappiness to be walked through. It is.
And it's really unfortunate, because one of the things when I talk about set point theory I don't really coin it as that with clients, but I talk about the concept of, okay, well, let's just back up here. If you're looking for weight loss, let's look at the whole picture. Okay. Let's look at, genetics. We will talk about looking at your parents and their weight history and how they've lived and how you were raised. Is it feasible? Like, do you have that kind of genetic makeup? We look at epigenetics, which is basically things that change the way your genes communicate and influence your body, but it doesn't change your DNA. It just changes the gene expression. So it's really an interesting, and I would say a sort of a new area of nutrition, but that plays a role. And we're seeing that people who eat in certain ways or exercise in certain ways or sleep in certain ways changes their epigenetics. It changes their gene expression. So that's something that we need to just pay attention to, because it doesn't mean that you can't change that gene expression back or manipulate it in a more positive light. But there is a lot, like Michael just said, there's like a bananas amount of stuff going on in your body.
Yeah.
And one of the other,
too, just so you know.
One of the other bananas is a specific, yeah, it's a scientific term. Yeah. One of the other things you just said that I'm going to back up is you said, you are not your friend. Before we started recording, Michael and I were kind of going through this, and he did get on his soapbox, even though we weren't live on air. This is how passionate he is about it. But he used an expletive when he said, you are not your friend.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Let's go back and check the
So,
tape. I'm not sure I
oh
said that. It
yeah.
does sound like me.
Yeah. So just to say, here's another, this again, we covered this on, body kindness. We've covered this in numerous episodes, talking about how we compare ourselves to other people, to the societal ideal of thinness or how one's body should look, what desirable traits are of beauty and attractiveness, and what undesirable traits are. And I think that is why so many people are resistant to an idea like set point theory, because set point does say, I mean, there's some things that you can change. We'll get into that. Like some of the things that you can work through and change. I don't know if that will change your weight, because these changes we'll talk about actually improve your health, but whatever your body decides to do with its weight is what your body decides to do with its weight. But I think people get so caught up in that comparison of what's the societal ideal and what does my friend look like, and this is how my friend lost her quote belly fat, or this is how my friend bulked up his chest or his shoulders, or whatever it is, these physique changes that people seek. There's very few people that truly find themselves having, like, morphing into the body they've really always wanted and maintaining proper health at the same time.
And without chemical assistance.
Oh, right. Or plastic surgery or whatever.
There's those things too.
Yeah. So genetics, epigenetics, and then so environment is another really important one. And we tend to think of environment as, just where you live and your home and how it's set up with food maybe. And, do you have a walkable neighborhood, that kind of stuff. But we also have to look at like how your environment is set up to optimize sleep, for example. We did a sleep episode a while back, and man, the way that sleep impacts your entire endocrine system is profound. It really is. So when people, for example, don't get very good sleep, and it changes their circadian rhythm, it changes their endocrine system, that then has a cascade of effects on your metabolism, on the way your body utilizes energy, on the way your body expends energy, whatever. So that then can have an influence on your body's happy place in terms of its weight. Because if you are in a constant sleep deprived state, or you're constantly stressed, I mean, lack of sleep increases cortisol levels, it increases the stress response in your body. That then leads to changes in how your body conserves energy, or and again, your set point of your weight. So years and years of inadequate sleep or shift work or any of that stuff, that can have a big influence. There's 1,000 environmental factors that go into
stress too, just
huge.
how stressful. I mean, we talk about work, but how stressful is home life?
Right.
I mean, I know some people who, like, having kids can be a stressful thing. I mean, I think at best it's stressful at times, but I know people who, you could say it's the way they've raised their kids and decided to parent. You could say it's unique challenges their kid had, whatever, but it is a constant state of stress. It is.
Yeah, totally.
It just constantly it's yelling and hollering and frustration, and there's no peace in the home. And if you have a stressful job and you come home and everything's stress, and then you stay up late because that's the only minute you get to yourself, so you sleep like crap, and like, oh, okay, well, guess what? 20 years of that, it might change some things.
Right.
Yeah. This is like an abuse to your body that it just can't recover from. It doesn't have the ability to.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because I think people get so focused on kind of their day to day, like just survive the day, get through the day, like get from wake up to bedtime and just survive. And when that means you're pretty much in a fight or flight response all the time, like every day,
all the
day in and
time.
day out. And we already see with set point theory, we already see that the evidence suggests that our set point gradually increases over time. Okay. So another thing you can't change is your age. And as we age, our set point generally
How hard you
trends
try,
up.
right?
I mean, how many
That lady
times,
20 or 60? I
yeah,
don't know.
how many times have we heard, oh yeah, I just can't eat or drink the same things I used to when I was in my
Mm-hmm.
20s or whatever. Well, your body just adjusts over time.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's a pretty substantially uh evidenced, sorry, I'm losing my losing my words,
Are you losing
substantially
your talking
evidenced.
things?
There's substantial, I'm losing the talking things that I'm trying to get to come out of my mouth. I found them again. There's substantial evidence that says that when we gain weight in our 50s and 60s, that actually has a health protective effect. So elderly people that have a slightly higher body mass actually have a better health outcomes. And so, I mean, sure, we don't want to just like let our bodies, gain weight beyond what they're naturally trending toward, but putting on that extra, set point theory says like 5 to 10% is kind of the range. Putting on that higher end, so you're 10% above, what your maybe typical adult weight is not necessarily a bad thing. We could
Yeah.
look at this as, oh, this is actually my body going through this evolution of life, and it's
Yeah.
trying to protect from what's coming,
Doing what it's
as I'm
supposed to
older.
do. The same
Yeah.
thing with like women in their 20s to 30s. Like your body's supposed to gain 5 to 15 pounds. Like that's what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's biologically, it's like, yeah, this is what we do now. And so if you're trying to fight that, well, you can try to fight that, but it might be kind of tough
Yeah.
because your
And
body's
some,
like, we do this thing now.
right, right.
Because you
And
know what your
since,
body doesn't give a shit about? What society says is appealing or attractive or healthy. It doesn't care at all about what society
Mhm.
says. It's just doing what is in your best interest for whatever reason, whether you agree with it or not. It doesn't care at all what the cover of magazines look like or what Instagram tells you. It doesn't care. It's just going to do what it is supposed to do.
Yep.
And yeah.
And if we could, and it's, I know we're simplifying this because Michael's starting to like adjust his hat and get all
Getting all worked
amped,
up.
but
Uh,
it's really hard. I know we're saying this in such blatant terms, but we also have a lot of compassion for where you're at right
mhm.
now and how hard it can be to feel like your body is betraying you and it's changing and you're out of control. You have no control over it, because there are things you can do. Um, you know, we talked about sleep. That's a huge one. Huge, huge, huge. And I wish that I knew more about sleep and optimizing sleep, but because for a lot of people, I think they're just underserved in that category of health.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
entirely. But it has such a huge impact on our physical health and what our body,
Absolutely. Yeah.
does with
That was
nutrients and
episode 17, by the way, our sleep
mhm.
episode.
um but just back to what you were saying, like your body doesn't care. It's doing the best it can with what it's given. So there are some things you can do. We say move more, we say eat better, we say, decrease stress. Well, take some meaningful steps in those directions and
Mhm.
and see where it gets you, and let your body be. Let it be. Let it do its thing. When you're working on some of these things that maybe need to be addressed in your life, let your body do its thing, and let it find its happy place with weight. I mean, so many people I've talked to, once they let that go, the restrictive eating, the binge eating, the yo-yo dieting, the back and forth, and that fighting that you're talking about, like fighting it, fighting it, fighting it, when they let it go and they just relax, first of all, less stress,
Yeah.
because you're not taking so much energy thinking about food and weight and how you look at bathing suit and if something fits the next season or whatever. So less stress. You probably will start focusing on what are the things that I can do to actually be healthier. maybe I should work on, optimizing sleep. Maybe I should work on preparing meals a little better. Maybe I should work on connection with my community and being healthy in that sense. There's a lot of things that you can do that really have nothing to
Mhm.
do with counting calories or manipulating your physical body.
Right.
So,
That directly impact your health. And
yeah.
this is one of the biggest frustrations and biggest lies from diet culture is this concept that smaller equals healthier. And it may for some people, like some people may be physically healthier if they lost some weight. That's possible. Some people may be healthier if they gained some weight. Some people, it may not matter. Like maybe there's a 30, 40, 50 pound range where you know what, you're good. And
Mm-hmm.
and more body fat, less body fat, it doesn't matter because you're good,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just this idea that we 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 talk about getting healthier and most of the time what people mean is getting smaller, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to get healthier, which equals in their mind, I know I need to lose weight because losing weight means healthier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, and we've talked about this before, but it it's like that's why we'll go to any lengths to lose weight because that's all that matters. Our actual health doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Our blood panels, how we feel, how we recover, how we, relate to ourselves, how we relate to food, what our social interactions are like, what our relationships with our family are like, our satisfaction, our stress management, our sleep, those things like are literally the things that will keep you healthy or kill you sooner, right? And
Yeah.
weight may be a byproduct of those things, but it's not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's are we taking true care of ourselves? And diet industry will tell you, screw all that stuff. Just get smaller and you'll be fine. And then we have
Yeah.
no investment in actually caring for ourselves because we're really abusing ourselves, right? And we're repeating all these lies about how our value and our worth and all that kind of stuff is wrapped up in our size. And when we get there, we don't have any ability to maintain this because it's from a place of hating our bodies versus loving ourselves,
Yeah.
and maybe there's no real health in maintaining the weight that you think you need to be at and maintain. There may be only unhealth and unwellness there for you. That's a
Mm-hmm.
real possibility. Is that if, well, I weighed 125 pounds in college, I need to be 125 pounds again. Well, maybe all of the behaviors you're going to have to engage in to get to 125 pounds and stay there are literally going to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Or at
very real
least, or at
possibility.
least drag down your quality of life. God, you're so right.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
That,
Like, all that stress and all that like preoccupation, like that stuff kills people.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
really does.
Well, and why, like, if you could, I've asked people this, if you could, basically transport your brain into this happy place where you are completely carefree and you're confident and you're comfortable and you are, able to manage things in a certain way and you feel very healthy and vibrant and whatever. If you could be in the body you have now and feel that way, would you choose that? And it's a really hard thing for people to answer because their brains are just, no, I need to be smaller. No, my
Yeah.
body
Well,
needs
how
to be
much would I
smaller because
weigh?
I'm not happy in this body.
Yeah.
But if you can believe that you could be there, your body actually is not an indicator of your happiness, your well-being, your health, all that stuff. I mean, it's a vehicle to, be healthy and to be well and to do the things you want to do, but it's not like your body size is your indicator. It's really hard for people to separate those two things though. And what you were saying just about, someone says, "Oh, I weighed this much in college, I should get back to that." When I'm having the weight conversation with clients, I ask them about their weight history. I ask, like, well, so if they put like a desired weight on my, intake form, and I'm like, "Okay, so when was the last time that you weighed that and for how long?" And if it has been like 10 years or more, and it was like, "Oh, I weighed that for 6 months and then I went, back up," then
Right.
that to me is an
Yeah.
indicator that, your body doesn't seem to be real happy with that weight. Now, there could be a number of other circumstances that are going on, like all the things we talked about, stress, or maybe a life change or something where you were not doing healthy things for your body in that period. And maybe that accounted for some of that weight regain coming back on. One of the interesting things that I think people need to know about weight loss and gain is that your set point will probably trend upward the more times that you severely restrict and then regain. The yo-yo dieting effect. One of the unfortunate things about our physiology is that when we lose weight, when we're in a period of restriction, our physiology is kind of hardwired to get us back up to a surplus or at least an equilibrium of calories. So when people are restricting, and they maybe are losing fat mass, we have this hormonal shift. We have this metabolic shift that happens where your body starts going, oh, wait a minute. No. We need to start conserving here. And we're going to make you hungrier. And we're going to change how we store this food. So one of the interesting things is when people, have you heard of the Minnesota starvation experiment or the Ansel Keys
referenced it
study?
a lot when people bring up
Oh my
starvation.
gosh. It is like any of you want to go read it. I'll link a little, just a very quick kind of rendition of it in our show notes. It was done in 1944 and 45. So it was before they really had some of the ethical restrictions on scientific studies, but they basically took these 36 men and starved them for, I think it was 20, how many months was it?
I don't know. It was a long time.
It was, oh my gosh, it was, maybe it was 24 weeks. Anyway, these men were emaciated and experienced all of these psychological and physiological effects. When they regained the weight, they regained 145% of their fat mass, of their original fat mass. So what that means is their body composition, 24 weeks of starvation. Oh my gosh. And this is true starvation. This isn't like, oh, I'm in starvation mode.
Yeah.
Their bodies changed the composition of what they stored when they were refed. So this is very common, and this is a challenge for people who are really trying hard to lose weight. Your body will probably regain in a disproportionate amount of fat mass to lean body mass, at least at first. And if you don't give it a chance to actually restore the lean body mass and find this kind of, nice homeostasis again and sort of find this even state, and then you dive into another, fad diet or extreme restriction, your body is just going to keep trying to put on that fat mass. And it really, that's where like the epigenetics comes in. It really changes some of your gene expression and your hormones when you do that. So,
yeah. Well, and even just the amount of like metabolic tissue, or how metabolic expensive tissue is in your body, right? Like, let's say you lose 30 pounds. Well, you lose some fat and you're going to lose some muscle in that 30 pounds, right? And then if you're in some sort of extreme deficit, we don't ever gradually come out of those, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I can't do it anymore. And we just go back to eating old ways. Well, guess what's going to, like Aaron said, like in this Minnesota starvation experiment, guess what's going to regain first is body fat, because we're gaining that weight back very quickly. We're not building up muscle, which takes time to develop. So when we get back to our pre-diet weight or above, which is super common, right? We may weigh the same amount, but our composition is different. We have a higher percentage of body fat and a lower percentage of muscle tissue. And guess what? Muscle tissue is more expensive metabolically. It takes more calories to maintain. So if we have less of it and we replace it with a less metabolically expensive tissue like fat, our metabolism isn't going to be the same.
Right.
It's lower, just the way it is.
Yeah. And just consider that storing fat is your body's efficient way to store energy. So our bodies are evolved to survive famine. And I know we hear this a lot, but it's really true when you look at the number of, decades, centuries, eons that humans have been around, that we have history on. It's only very recently that we have a surplus of calories available to us at any given moment in time. we went through this evolution for centuries of
Mhm.
really trying to conserve as best we could because we didn't have a McDonald's down the street. We didn't have a pantry full of food.
Yeah.
So consider that your body's most efficient way to store energy is in fat. It's going to put those stores on first when you're
Mhm.
refeeding after a period of severe restriction.
Yeah.
And then one more thing with fat, people say fat's not metabolically active. Well, it's not. You stated it beautifully when you said, well, your muscle tissue takes more to maintain, like it requires more energy. Your fat mass is metabolically active,
Mhm.
but in a different way. So when I was in college, the hormone leptin was this new discovered thing. Leptin is a hormone that basically signals satiety, and it is produced in your fat cells. So what do you think happens when you lose fat? Not as much leptin. So you lose fat, you change your body composition, you get leaner, and your body starts getting these signals, stronger signals that I'm hungry all the time. My appetite goes up. I'm not as satisfied. And in order to try and restore that, the leptin levels, your body will put on more fat because fat produces leptin. So again, this is another layer of mechanisms that's going on when we talk about weight loss and trying. Your body is super wise and it's very adaptable, but maybe not in the way that you want it to
Right.
adapt, to some of these changes you're trying to impose.
Right. And then I think to bring it around from a different perspective is, why do you want to impose those changes?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a really good reason. The only reason you want to is because that's what you think you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You think your body's supposed to look a certain way. You think that looking a certain way is where happiness and worth lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we didn't have all that BS, we all might be a lot more comfortable and happy just with our bodies the way they are. But we're beat over the head with the fact, like, no, this is ideal. This is what's attractive or sexy or healthy or whatever. This isn't, this is. Oh, well, I'm this over here. So I must need to get to there to be attractive or sexy or healthy. And
Right. Right.
it,
Michael's gonna scream.
I wanted to. It's not true. It's not true. Sure. Are there lower and higher weights that would be unhealthy for you? Yeah, probably. If you got too low or too high, sure. But that doesn't mean that just because you don't look like what a magazine tells you that you're supposed to, you're unhealthy. And if we're not
Mm-hmm.
chasing things to be healthier, it's a real strong indicator you maybe shouldn't be doing them.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember that the set point is a range.
Yeah.
It's not like you are supposed to be, 191.5 pounds. It's
Mm-hmm.
really like saying, okay, this is about the range. And the studies reflect this, that it's like a 5 to 10% kind of buffer either direction. So
Mm-hmm.
when people gain weight, they'll probably top out at some point. Yes, there are cases in extreme obesity and there's other factors there too. There's a lot of not just genetic factors, but I would say environmental things going on, maybe some trauma, because trauma actually really can impart a change on our metabolisms, our behaviors, our epigenetics as well. Think about people that are have developed an eating disorder because of abuse or
Mm-hmm.
because of, coping or whatever. So there are those cases, those extreme cases where the body will either get much larger than we would anticipate, way outside of that set point, or much smaller than we would
Mm-hmm.
anticipate, way below that set point. But in general, when given the right nutrients, the right environment, and sort of, kept within a reasonable realm, your body is going to settle in this area. Even with obesity, we see that like 5% weight change, 5% weight loss, I should say, we see very favorable health outcomes with just 5%. So, this idea that people have to get super thin in order to be healthy because they were obese, or they have to lose like, 60 or 80
Right.
pounds or whatever. No, 5% actually
Yeah.
can make a huge difference. And guess what? That is within that whole set point theory body weight range,
Yeah.
that 5%. And so, if we could just I don't know, wrap our heads around this a little bit and maybe give it a shot and
Mhm.
see how it feels to give your body the things it needs in
Mhm.
order to be healthy. And if you listen to Middleish, we talk about them all the time. So go back through some other
Pick an
episodes.
episode.
Yeah. But if you do those things consistently, your body will figure out its happy place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And here's the thing about like when you can shed the idea that you have to just be smaller and that you can be healthy in a range that maybe doesn't look like you're told it's supposed to. There's so much freedom and happiness there. That there's so much less stress. You know, you said something earlier and it got me thinking, like, I wonder, like, on average, just the average American, how many times a day they think about in some way their weight, either, you know, the way
mm,
their clothes are fitting, or should I eat this or not, or, you
right.
know, that kind of stuff. I bet it's in the hundreds,
Mhm.
probably. I bet it's one of the top 10 things we think about, if not top five, right? Like
Mhm.
either what we're eating, how it's going to, I know if it's going to make me fat or not. Is this going to help me get, you know, lean out? Should I, all that kind of stuff. I bet it's way up there. I bet we
Yeah.
spend a lot of our time worried about how a certain situation or whatever is going to impact our weight or beating ourselves up because of it. I bet it's a
Yeah.
lot.
It's a
And
ton.
when you can shed that, man, talk about a lot of mental real estate that you free up to be present. Because guess what? When
Totally.
you're worried about your weight or whether you should not eat this food or not, yeah, that takes you out of the moment. You're not very present, right? You're worried about
Totally.
other things. And the huge reduction in stress because you're not worried
Mhm.
about this stuff and just freedom. Like, oh, do I want to have pizza? Cool. I get to eat pizza, not
Right.
because I've earned it or because I worked out hard or because it's my cheat day, because I'm a freaking human being that would like a piece of pizza. So I get to have that.
Yep.
There's so much freedom when you step
Yeah.
outside of that diet culture stuff and just like, how about I just take care of myself, enjoy life, and be cool with it? And how about that's what we pursue?
Yeah. When you talk about the mental real estate that opens up, early, and I've talked about this before, early in my pro career, I was like, oh, I've got to look the part, right? Like
Mm,
oh, I'm an athlete now. And so
yeah.
I started kind of talking myself into that. Oh, this is, how I'm a pro athlete now. I got to eat this certain way. I got to look this certain way. I got to be this certain way. And I really tried to ratchet down my body size, even though I'm in a small body to begin with. But like I gotta be ripped or whatever. I gotta be
Mhm.
lighter on the bike. And I will tell you firsthand the amount of energy that takes, even from an expert. Like I'm a dietitian, I
Right.
get the numbers and the tracking and the whatever weighing and
Yeah.
measuring. It's a lot of energy and time. And to your point, it's just a lot of mental angst and stress to
Yeah.
every time you're eating something. It has to be this thing, this big decision.
Mhm.
And when I let that go, it was a very short lived period of time for me because I was like, this is not worth it. Like, I love food and I love my body too much.
Right.
And I need to have a period and this just needs to happen. And so I really embraced, like, okay, I'm going to do all the things that I know I need to do as an athlete and as a healthy human. And I'm going to embrace this and see where my body weight falls and see where
Mhm.
my body composition falls. And it naturally just fell in this very predictable and I would say a very strong and athletic space where I was able to execute the training in a way that I couldn't before. And I was
Mhm.
able to handle life stresses way better because I had that ability. So just speaking from an athlete's experience, and yes, I know there are probably those athletes out there that are like, oh, but I've got to, I'm Olympian or I'm, at
Mhm.
the top of my game. Okay, do your thing, try doing you. But for the vast majority of us, even at the top level of sport, if you truly let your body do what it's supposed to do with giving it its nutrients and its environment, you'll be amazed
Yeah.
what you can do with that mental space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything else
Okay.
on
Um,
set point theory?
I don't
SPT?
think I SPT. I don't think I have anything else. If you all have questions or comments, please let us know. We'd love to hear it. Um, I think we can do meeting in the mundane.
Let's do it. You want to go first? Or you want me to go
Yeah.
first? You want to do it at the same
This
time?
blah, 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 we can talk over each other.
Sounds like a great idea.
We've done that a few times. I don't know if it was well received, but
Well, it was,
yeah.
it was interesting.
So this weekend, Matt and I, so we took Monday off. And he worked on a project all day. And so it was kind of evening by the time we really got to hang out. And I wanted to walk down. It's so hot here. It's still really hot. And I wanted to walk down by the river and, kind of dunk my legs in the river. And Matt's not a big walker anyway. Like I really have to kind of coax him. He's gotten better over the years, but you know, put a beverage in his hand. Will you walk with me? Here's
Like
your
the idea.
man can.
Like it's bedtime.
Yeah.
Come on, Mac, walk to
Right.
bed.
Come on,
Come
let's
on.
go.
No, don't crawl. Get up. I don't like walking.
And we walked down by the river and we just had a really nice little stroll, sit in the river, cool off, and then we get out and we walk a little more and watch the rafters. There were tons of people floating the river, and we saw a couple cute little bulldogs at the river, and it was nice, and it was so simple. And we're moving out of this neighborhood, so we're pretty close to the river where we are in our new place, but it was something that I think we've taken for granted, that we live so close to the river, we could walk down there anytime. And now we're like, oh my gosh, we're moving. We better go enjoy this. And so it was really, and Matt's like, we should do this more often. And I'm like, yeah, in the next 6 weeks before we move, right?
Yeah, a lot.
It was just
Nice.
super simple, and it's so close to home, and yet we haven't done it enough. So we will be doing more of that this summer for sure.
Nice. Mine involves nature as well. So, like I said, on 4th of July, we went and stayed at a place out in the country. And I haven't been kind of outside of the city really at night since we probably went camping in March over spring break. So it's been a while, right? And so it was the 4th of July evening. We were kind of sitting around like a campfire and kids were playing and stuff. And it was starting to get dark and we were getting ready to do some fireworks and stuff. And just for me, it was looking up and going like, oh, there are all those stars that I don't get to see on a regular basis. Because, we're in the city and there's all kinds of light pollution and stuff. And you just don't get to see them as clearly. And just looking up every now and then, and just like, oh man, because it reminds me of kind of being back up in Oregon in my hometown, because they're, a little town of 10,000 people. There wasn't a whole lot of light pollution. You could usually see a lot of stars, and we go camping all the time as kids, and so anyway, it was just very nostalgic to just be like, out of the city and look at the stars. And I just had all these nice little moments. So I was surrounded by awesome people and laughter and fun and stuff. But just these kind of little private moments of my own as I kept looking up and enjoying the stars.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Nice. I miss seeing, it's funny because I miss seeing the stars. I forget how little I see them until you get out and you're like, whoa, there's a lot up there. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, remember, Aaron challenged you to do one of 3 things. If you haven't done them yet, like, you're already behind the game. So come on, get with it. Let's go. No, but we really would appreciate if you did any of those things, rate and review, share with a friend, share on your feed. We say this a lot, but we feel like we're saying important things and really kind of whole picture health things that people need to hear to really be healthy people, and things that are counter to a lot of what the diet and fitness industries are beating you over the head with. So we feel like it's a message that needs to be out there.
Yep. We're here to keep it real.
Keep it real.
Middleish.
Yeah. All right.
Have a good day.